Representative Brian Sims in the Pennsylvania House, he wanted to speak and commemorate the action that the Supreme Court took in knocking down DOMA. So he just wanted to say some words, and he was unfortunately silenced by Representative Darrell Metcalf, who later on went and said why he silenced, through a procedural motion, Brian Sims from speaking. He said, "I did not believe that as a member of that body that I should allow someone to make comments such as he was preparing to make that ultimately were just open rebellion against what the Word of God has said, what God has said, and just open rebellion against God's law." Now, in the wake of that, as you can imagine, a lot of people had a problem with his comments, and there was a lot of support for Brian Sims. When he eventually did get to speak, spontaneously, the entire Democratic caucus joined him, which is a very moving display. Sims, by the way, had a statement. He said that after Wednesday's decisions by the U.S. Supreme Court, it is past time for Pennsylvania to join the 12 states, soon to be 13 because of California, referring to Prop 8 getting knocked down, and the District of Columbia that already provide this basic measure of equality and dignity to their residents, referring there to a bill that he wants to get passed, which would legalize gay marriage also in Pennsylvania.
Right. It should be pointed out that what Metcalf said was not during session. He said it to a news organization.
It was explaining his actions.
It was explaining his actions, which doesn't excuse what he did, but just in terms of the public outcry, or in the record of the Pennsylvania legislature, they cannot reprimand him. They can't take action against him for words he said outside of the political discourse. But man, it would be nice. You hear all the Democrats getting behind him. It's always better. It's always better when a Republican sits there in Congress and says, we're going to probably have to impeach the president. These are things that are bad, like it was under Nixon during Watergate. It would be great if a Republican came across and said, God, I can't believe my colleague Darrell Metcalf said these things. This is not reflective of who we are. And, it just takes one. Just takes one.
Yeah.
Right, and Metcalf revealing the low-hanging fruit that we can just pick on now, that the idea of the separation of church and state is one thing, but the idea of Jesus versus God. Jesus, if we're to believe the word of the Bible, is a socialist, a peace lover. Is God, if we're to believe the word of the Old Testament, is a grade A douche waffle. I mean, we have some problems with the Word of God, and we want to separate from that how we, as in the greatest democracy in the world, govern ourselves.
Yeah. This whole idea that all of these people stand on the Bible. They stand on the Bible, the Bible, the Bible. We live in a secular country, and that doesn't, what Jesus says, unfortunately, in the political conversation doesn't matter at all. And the people who think that it does are becoming more and more marginalized as more Americans realize that, this isn't about that.
Jesus might be crying if he sees the bonuses that Wall Street executives get while we have poverty, approaching third world levels.
That might make him cry. I mean, he would certainly urge more philanthropy. That's for sure.
Yeah, I really hate this statement. I find this to be a very scary, granted, it's the Pennsylvania House. I mean, it's not the Senate or anything like that, but I don't want to see this sort of thing. I would imagine that it's 2013. The idea that, there are people whose philosophy, I guess, to some extent relies on the belief that we're a Christian nation. I understand that sort of influencing your views of what policy we should take, but to so brazenly say that the action you took in government, as someone who has the power to shut down speech, is explicitly about your interpretation of the Bible. If I saw this in the Senate, for instance, I would worry for our future, because it's easy for us to imagine he's not going to be censured because it wasn't actually on the floor. Maybe the voters will vote him out, but that seems unlikely. I imagine it's probably a fairly conservative district. I don't think that he's going to be punished for this, and I think that this view will be less popular in terms of absolute numbers.
That's the punishment. The Supreme Court punished this guy the other day. America is punishing this guy. Is he going to be shackled? No. Is he going to lose his next election? No. But his way of thinking is becoming marginalized in America. That's the Schadenfreude you have to take right now. And even, it's not even Schadenfreude because it's not somebody we necessarily like. But the punishment comes in the results. And yes, it's like when your favorite player on another team has a huge contract. He makes a ton of money, but his team keeps losing and losing. and so you can look at it as saying, he still has his seat in the House, but what he brings, his currency, isn't worth very much anymore.
And an open revolt against God's law, maybe we should thank him for inviting that debate. We probably should be in an open revolt against God's law if you look at the Old Testament.
Totally.
I'd invite that.
And speaking personally, had he not said what he had said, I never would have heard the term douchewaffle.
In the wake of the Supreme Court knocking down DOMA, some Republicans see this as an opportunity to try once again to enshrine an opposition to same-sex marriage into the U.S. Constitution. Now here, Tim Huelskamp, he was speaking with CNN's Wolf Blitzer, and he is not a fan of it. He thinks that this is like the opening they've been waiting for, I guess. Let's hear him tell it.
I think given this decision, which I think has shocked a lot of Americans, and that the court would step this far and accuse Bill Clinton and the Republican Congress at the time of animus, and the decision was outrageous. I think it's going to encourage a lot of folks to step forward and say, hey, we got to protect marriage and protect families, and particularly our children.
Yeah, I don't doubt that it will encourage individuals to step forward like him and to say that.
Yeah.
But I think that he's really misreading the political winds in this case.
Yeah, I think first of all, to say it shocked us. No, I don't think any result would have shocked us. We know the court is split, so it would have gone 5-4 one way or the other. Mm-hmm. If they had ruled against it, yeah, a lot of people would have been, I'm really upset. Shocked? I don't think a lot of America was actually shocked by this. I think they were actually warmed by it. One thing that he brought up, guys, is the way the Republicans say, point to Democrats and say, accusing Bill Clinton of animus. Bill Clinton, DOMA happened under Bill Clinton. Mm. So too, though, did the conversation about gay Americans that had never occurred before. You can't expect that Bill Clinton would have become president and said, okay, gay marriage, gay rights, everything, benefits, full benefits for everyone. That just wouldn't have happened. It's impractical to think that. It was just as impractical to think that when he became president in the first 100 days of his presidency, the first thing he did was try and find a way to get gays in the military. It crushed him in the polls. It was politically a silly thing to have done at the time. But the person who started the conversation, imperfect though it may have been, this was the conclusion of that conversation. He is responsible for why we're talking about this today and not a few years from now.
And political expediency doesn't always serve the will or what's best for the people. This is one. I don't want to be in a position of protecting the Supreme Court of the United States, which again and again has granted constitutional rights to corporations and kind of hijacked our government and the will of the people. But in this case, they do seem to have responded to what the majority of people, as we talked about, want. And the Republicans, just like studies have shown individuals do, when they're presented with the fact that they are wrong, and they're wrong on political expediency. They may be right on whatever moral niche they want to carve for themselves, but they will hang their own. They'll hang themselves. They'll hoist themselves in their own petard, to borrow an Elizabethan phrase. But if they don't respond to the changing winds in this and the changing winds on immigration reform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I think that it's difficult to tell in each individual case what's driving the continued attempts to put this into the Constitution. I think he might very well be a true believer, like maybe he's just driven by...
Well, Tim Huelskamp is among the most conservative members of the House of Representatives. He's in Kansas. He's going to win with a plurality of the vote until he decides he doesn't want to be a congressman anymore. Yeah. That's pretty clear where he comes from. And that's why the House of Representatives is very different than any other body. I mean, these guys can, on every issue, from immigration to gay rights, whatever it is, they come from specific places, like you said in Pennsylvania. They come from specific places where they're going to get elected with a lot of support, so they can get there, and there's no risk to them saying these things.
Yeah.
But Huelskamp is an outlier.
Yeah.
I mean, he is far to the other end.
Well, and he's allowed to be because he's from Kansas.
Well, he's allowed to be because he's from Kansas, and he does represent a certain segment of the American population, and that's what representative government is, but it doesn't make him any less of a crazy fool.
Yeah, but the thing is that there, in that interview at least, he's not just saying my district or my state believes that this needs to happen. He thinks that he can extrapolate that out to the entire country.
Of course he does, yeah.
And so we saw, I believe it was earlier this year, a study that they looked at individual representatives, their districts, and both conservatives and liberals, but especially conservatives, vastly overestimated the conservatism of their districts. And I assume that his is extremely conservative, but he seems to be ensconced in this conservative, middle of the country sort of bubble. And he doesn't see that there's change going on in many parts of the country, and I think that that's unfortunate.
Yeah, similarly to if you're in New York City or Los Angeles, you're going to think you can't believe that there are people who think like they do in Kansas, and that we live in a big country. But what happens?
Is Kansas not full of Priuses and Volts?
Well, Volts, yeah, but and unfortunately votes for Tim Huelskamp. But the thing with with Huelskamp is, and his people, the Huelskamp, if you will, is they're going to be left on the tracks and the train is going by. And that's what happens throughout the course of American history. And civil rights proved that also. With the day the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1965, the Voting Rights Act was passed, people were saying this is an outrage, this is going to crush America, we will change this Constitution, we will elect Republican presidents who put in justices who try and change that tide. And actually they put in Richard Nixon, who gave us, Rehnquist at the very least.
Yeah. My last point that I want to make on this, I passed it over, unfortunately. I love your reference to Bill Clinton's first major move being the attempt to allow gays to openly serve in the military, because I think it shows how much progress on these two different issues that we can make in just, I guess, 12 years or something like that, about a decade.
Yeah.
That back in the 90s, inconceivable that you could have gay marriage, such that they passed DOMA, inconceivable that they could serve openly in the military. So we had to have Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but now in just a couple of years, we've had major progress on both of those.
Right, and so what was inconceivable and small and seems silly at this time was groundbreaking at the time. Absolutely groundbreaking. It's like, allowing blacks to sit on the front of the bus in Montgomery, but it didn't give them the vote. So you could say that in 1950 Eisenhower didn't do enough, and it took till the Johnson years for it to happen. So it is absolutely where it started, and I think he deserves credit for that, even if he was wrong. If it happened now, and there was political experience.
Progressives serve progress and regressives fight against progress.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they're doing that in this case.